Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Adam here with Any Farm Life. Today we're going to be building some floating shelves for our basement. Now these are not going to be box construction. I'm going to be planing down some pieces of red oak that are roughly 4x10 right now using this DeWalt DW735 planer. And while I will be building the shelves themselves, I'll employ some help when it comes to mounting, and I'll be using what's known as a Sheppard bracket. We'll get to that a little later, but it's a welded up piece of steel that makes mounting floating shelves so much easier. Before we jump in, I'll give you guys a shot of my setup and the materials. The one on the right has already been planed down, so nothing to do with that as far as the planer goes. Turned out pretty nice. Here though, you can see how rough a shape these 4x10 beams are before we put them through the planer. And like I said, using the DeWalt DW735 planer. I know many out there on the internet think that this is junk. Honestly, for me, who's a hobby woodworker, it's been fantastic thus far. Here's a quick shot of my setup. I don't try to collect the dust. I actually just discharge the dust, and as you can see there, it's been working pretty well. If you've never run one of these before, hearing protection is an absolute must. Always want to make sure you don't take too much out in the first bite. If you guys can see on there, some serious cupping on this lumber. It's been sitting out in the barn for about 2 or 3 years. Actually 3 or maybe 4. Baby step this thing, and it's not going to be perfect. I'm not using a sled, but it'll be okay for what we're doing. The crown first here. So there they both are, all planed down. Red oak is absolutely beautiful. I love some of the character in here with all these holes from insects. The next step though will be to run this down my table saw to clean up this edge with a straight edge on both sides. And then my miter saw will clean up the ends. I won't show you that process, but know that that's my next step. But for now, I'll show you the brackets and how these actually mount up. Okay, so here's a quick look at the brackets. I've already got mine mounted because we had tile work done here. It's a whole lot easier to find studs before you put up tile than after. It is 3/16 steel on the back here. I think these rods are 1/4 inch in diameter and about 7 inches long. What's nice about these being unibody is that when you go to level it up, you level up the entire bracket all at once. I'm sure if you guys have done any research on floating shelves, you've seen where you can just buy individual rods like this and place them on the wall. The problem there is that drilling the holes and lining everything up can get a little bit tricky, and I just like this foolproof method. I've already got my brackets up here. I'm just going to take one down as a template so we can go out in the garage and drill them up. They do give you this drilling template guide, which I will walk you through how to use, but a pretty foolproof method for hanging a pretty heavy shelf. I may mention I'm just going to take the bottom one down. They're identical. No need to mess with taking the top one down. Yours will not come covered in mortar, but yeah, like I said, 3/16 inch steel, pretty solid, should do the trick. So here's one of my shelves. I sanded them down, got the edges all cleaned up as I said I would off camera. This is the side we'll be putting holes in, so this would be the face down here. Effectively just center it up and take your pencil and mark where you're going to be making your holes. I actually think that they say to mark your first one, and you can set this off. So your marker's right here, and you line it up. You use a couple screws to pin it down, and you make a pencil line on the square edge here. You drill about 3 inches down in the hole, and then come back later and finish drilling it out when the template's not there. But once you lift this off, you go back to your reference mark and measure over 12 inches, because these are 12-inch spacing. Set it down the line and repeat, and so on. I'm going to go through this kind of hyperlapse as I do mine. They have great instructional videos. Sheppard Brackets, that is, has instructional videos if you really want the details of how to do this. But they do recommend using a wood owl bit, and I will link this below along with the bracket and everything else. But it should be fairly straightforward, at least I hope. So this is my first time tackling it, so we'll see. One important thing to do is make sure, depending on how thick your shelf is, that you place it at the right thickness of the shelf. It's probably not important that you get it, dead center, but whatever you pick, you make sure you keep the same run all the way down. All right, you see a lot of my chicken scratch math on here. To aid in placing this in the center of the board itself, I measured down, I think in this case it was 1 7/16 of an inch, or not quite 3 inches in thickness. I made a center line that runs the length of the board, and as I go to line these up, I will ensure that we are centered in each of the channels. So I'll do the first one, have my mark, go 12 inches, and so on. All right, I got all 4 holes drilled. The moment of truth. Man, I love when a plan comes together. A couple other quick pointers on this, and then I'll do the other one off camera. In addition to marking the center line, which helped immensely, it's also important to, well, A, have a shot back around. That bit makes a heck of a mess. But more importantly, if you find when you're trying to put this in here initially that some of your holes are a little bit too far apart or too tight, you need to expand them. Do not just try to force this down. So I had the one hole down here was a little bit far just for whatever reason, and I was pounding this thing down to see if it'd go, and it about got stuck. So a quick way to make your hole a little bit wider, I know sometimes widening a hole can be a really difficult thing, but with the included little mount, this guy, if you just put it back on the hole and scoot it over a little bit where you need to, it'll go down and clean it out no problem. And so I did that just so I didn't have a ridiculously tight fit. Should be good and level when I hang it, but we'll see. I'm going to drill up the other one off camera, and then we will go to the basement and slide these on the wall just to make sure they fit and are level, and then I'll probably pull them down and stain them. Show you guys that at the very end. This won't affect my build because of how I'm building it, but take note that this adds 3/16 of an inch to the back of your shelf. So in theory, if you're attaching this straight to the wall, you would need to route this out so that this can have a pocket to set in. Sheppard Brackets does make a router template that you can use to put down first and kind of route the inside. You could also probably make a jig yourself pretty easily. In my case, I'm not worried about that because I have tile that's kind of filling in the void, right? I set my bracket before we put tile on, so this is flush now with our tile. All right, I got the bottom bracket back up here. Put plenty of screws in it. I got 3 studs with each one of these. There's about the last stud on the right side's here. So this one's got a little more play in it than the left side. I think it'll be okay though. These also aren't light, so it makes it a little bit tricky. Alright, those look pretty good. Still got to stain them and poly them. And I think they're level. I'll put the level on here a little bit, check them out. I think the lights and when you move and the angles are kind of playing with them here a little bit. All in all though, not too bad. Let me stain these and then we'll talk about them a little bit more. So here they are after they've been stained and polyed. I think it turned out really nice. As you can see, I've already got some of my trinketies up here. For anyone wondering, here's the stain I used. It was a Minwax. The color was Special Walnut 224. I found that it pairs really nice with red oak, as I've been doing a lot of projects down here in the basement. So the Sheppard brackets were very easy to use. Highly recommend those if you're doing some floating shelves yourself, especially doing solid beam floating shelves and not building, the box construction. I will link the ones I purchased below down on Amazon. You can also buy these at Sheppard Brackets website as well. All right, that's enough yip yapping. I got plenty more projects. We'll see you guys next time.